Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and it is once again time for me to don my newsman fedora and attempt to understand half the words I'm going to be saying here in this video, because once again, we're going to be covering the Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Some big news came out today, some absolutely massive news. The United States Federal Trade Commission is filing a lawsuit to block Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard, and in fact, this actually just came out right now as I'm recording this video. Apparently, the hearing for that lawsuit is going to take place 2 months after the deadline where Microsoft was supposedly supposed to acquire Activision Blizzard in 2023, which means that they're going to have to redo the entire contract even if they beat the lawsuit, which is pretty insane. So this is going to be coming in straight from the FTC right here. Microsoft has already shown that it can and will withhold content from its gaming rivals. Today we seek to stop Microsoft from gaining control over a leading independent game studio and using it to harm competition in multiple dynamic and fast-growing gaming markets. And that's coming straight from the FTC. And before we go any further, thank you, Charlie Intel, for compiling all this on your website. I'll put a link to them down there in the description. Like, Charlie Intel is like the GOAT when it comes to compiling this stuff together. It makes my job a lot easier, although at the same time, I'm still not 100% what's going on here, but I can give you guys the facts and then we can start to draw some conclusions from there. So apparently one of the biggest factors for why the FTC is doing this, the reason why they're taking Microsoft to court to try to stop this acquisition, is because when Microsoft bought Bethesda, they had to talk to a bunch of these different foreign regulators about how they're not going to be withholding their games from rival competitors. The big thing here is they don't want Microsoft to become a monopoly like they used to be in the PC world so many years ago. The idea is if Microsoft buys something like Bethesda, for example, which is known for Elder Scrolls and Fallout and a bunch of other games, then they have to basically make sure that all those games are still going to come out for PlayStation and PC or wherever other platform, right? They don't want Microsoft to have a monopoly over such a big gaming studio. And Microsoft is like, yeah, we have no interest in doing that. And then once the deal was finalized, Microsoft went back on their word, and upcoming games like Starfield, for example, maybe Fallout 5, Elder Scrolls 6, like all those games are potentially going to be Microsoft exclusive. Right now, we know for a fact that Starfield is going to be Microsoft exclusive. So basically, Microsoft were a bunch of dicks, and they straight up lied to those regulators, and as a result of that, the United States Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, is trying to block their acquisition of Activision Blizzard, because right now, and I've covered this so many times here in the channel, because Microsoft right now is saying everything they need to say. Basically, they're saying that they're trying to make more games more accessible for more gamers all across the world, regardless of platform, and you know, they offered 10-year guarantees for COD to Nintendo, Steam, and Sony, and Nintendo and Steam have already agreed to that. Sony has not. Sony is actually very much against the idea that Microsoft might acquire Activision Blizzard. And in fact, they also said, according to the analytical site MLEX, I've never heard of this, but apparently Sony reportedly believes that Microsoft's deal with Nintendo for Call of Duty is smoke and mirrors and misleading, and current COD would never work on the Nintendo Switch, which I think we all agree. I just don't see it. Like, if you cannot take Modern Warfare 2 and put it on the Switch, it simply would not work. The thing barely runs Pokemon, for crying out loud. There needs to be a Switch 2, honestly. And Sony reportedly is saying if Activision actually wanted to put COD on Nintendo, they would have done it already. You know what I mean? Like, Sony is basically saying that Microsoft is just putting on a show for everybody right now, trying to make themselves seem very inclusive and very willing to share their intellectual properties across all these different platforms. Sony's not buying it, and honestly, the way they said that, it kind of does make sense. Like, maybe they're doing this 10-year deal because they know stuff that we don't know, and Nintendo's gonna be putting out a much more powerful system in the future, and then that system would actually be capable of running COD. I don't know. We really have no idea. But continuing on here with the story, we have a bunch of executives over at Activision Blizzard speaking out, one of which being Bobby Kotick. That is right, ladies and gentlemen. And you know the memes, like, are we the baddies, right? I kind of feel that way because I see that Bobby Kotick is putting out this this statement here to his employees, and now I'm like, well, if Bobby Kotick is for something, it's probably a bad thing. But so far, the Microsoft acquisition seems good, but we've been burned by Bobby Kotick so many times in the past, I'm like, I don't know if I trust old Bobby. But here's what he put out to his employees. Team, I wanted to provide a brief update on our our pending merger with Microsoft. This is Bobby Kotick, the CEO of Activision Blizzard, if you guys don't know. This week, the United States Federal Trade Commission announced its decision to challenge the deal. This means they'll file a lawsuit to block the merger, and arguments will be heard by a judge. This sounds alarming, so I wanted to reinforce my confidence that this deal will close. The allegation that this deal is anti-competitive doesn't align with the facts, and we believe we'll win this challenge. Now, what he says right here is, it's kind of weird to me. Thanks to the hard work by all of you every day, we're on a strong path, bringing epic joy to players around the world with what I believe are the greatest games in the industry. At the same time, the competitive landscape is shifting, and simply put, a combined Microsoft Activision Blizzard King will be good for players, good for employees, good for competition, and good for the industry. Our players want choice, and this gives them exactly that. You can read more about these specifics on these points in this update we recently shared with you. We believe these arguments will win despite a regulatory environment focused on ideology and misconceptions about the tech industry. Thank you for your dedication and creativity, Bobby. So yeah, once again, are we the baddies here? Because like so far, the merger and everything that Microsoft has been saying seems good for COD fans, right? And obviously I'm trying to call this down the middle here. I'm just trying to I just want what is best for COD fans. I don't want Microsoft, making Call of Duty a Microsoft Xbox Game Pass exclusive or anything like that. That is just ridiculous. But the other stuff that they're saying, like same day content parity, that is good for the COD player base. At the end of the day, that's all I really give a shit about. I don't care how much money Microsoft is making. I don't care how much money Sony is making. I care about the COD series, and I want a healthy environment for the COD series going forward, and part of that is getting rid of exclusivity. I've been speaking out against exclusivity for a freaking decade now. I would love for that to stop, and Microsoft claims that should they be able to acquire Activision Blizzard, exclusivity will go away. So far, that sounds pretty good. But on the flip side of the coin, when Bobby Kotick is coming out and saying things like a combined Microsoft Activision Blizzard King will be good for players, employees, competition, and the industry, I'm like, well, Bobby's kind of a dick, and I kind of don't like anything about him, so I really don't know how to feel about that. But then we have other people. This woman, I'm going to try my best to pronounce her name, Lulu Cheng Messervy. I think I was actually pretty close on that. If I wasn't, well, I tried my best anyway. So she puts out this tweet right here. This is one of the higher executives at Activision Blizzard. The FTC's job is to protect consumers, not competitors. That's a burn right there. This vote departs from precedent, but the law hasn't changed. Any claim the deal is anti-competitive ignores facts, and the deal benefits gamers and the industry, especially given competition from abroad. We look forward to proving our case in court and closing our deal with Microsoft. So there you have it. I mean, people at the higher ups at Activision Blizzard are still, they're the ones being acquired, but they're obviously all for it because they're getting a big payday out of this, right? So it's not just Microsoft that wants this to happen. Activision Blizzard King want this to happen as well. So basically the only people that are trying to stop this, there's two entities, right, that have agreed on this. They both want this to happen, but all these outside entities are like, I don't know all about that. It's kind of like if you guys were ever in a fantasy football league and then two friends decide to trade, but you're not quite sure it's actually a fair trade, so then the league has to have kind of a little bit of a meeting. Do we think this is actually a good trade? Are they in cahoots right here? Is this actually going to be good for the league, or is one team trying to help out the other team to kind of screw over the other people in the league? You guys ever have that situation? Probably not. I don't know. I play a lot of fantasy football. I'm actually doing pretty well this season, and so that was kind of something that was on my mind. But I think that comparison is going to hit home for a couple of you. It's kind of like that exact same idea. They agreed on this, and a bunch of other people in the industry are like, no, we do not agree on that. And it kind of comes down to the FTC taking this to court and whether or not it's going to get approved by all of these, anti-monopoly trust people out there. I'm trying my best to understand this stuff. I mean, I play video games for a living, and now suddenly it's like, hey, Joe, can you explain to us what's happening here with this big multi-billion-dollar merger between two giant conglomerates? I'm like, yeah, I'll do my best. And honestly, I think I'm doing a decent job. I think, I did see a comment in yesterday's video. Somebody said that other content creators, other COD YouTubers, they tend to confuse them with some of the stuff they say in their videos, but I'm usually pretty concise and I try to be pretty clear about it, and I can kind of explain things in a way that people actually understand. And I think it goes back to, I'm not trying to toot my own horn because I don't even know how well of a job I did for this video, but I will say one of the best ways to learn something is to try to teach it to somebody else, because when you do it that way, you kind of break it down to its most simple form, and you're kind of learning as you go. So that's been me the entire time I've been trying to cover this acquisition. And as always, I'm going to continue covering it as more information comes out. But for right now, that is all the news that came out today. Too long didn't watch. The United States FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, is filing a lawsuit in an attempt to block Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard King. And the actual hearing itself is not going to happen until after the acquisition was supposed to go through, which means Microsoft themselves are going to have to renegotiate now with Activision Blizzard, even if they do win the lawsuit. And when it comes to a renegotiation, who knows how that's actually going to work out. So, I mean, at the end of the day, this could be massive. This could just be, you know, the FTC and Sony and Google and, like, you know, shady people and back business meetings and stuff like that, just trying to delay the inevitable. Or this could actually mean the end of the Microsoft acquisition of Activision. We'll have to wait and see how things are going to play out. But ladies and gentlemen, once again, I will be here with you every step of the way as we learn more and as this story develops. But for right now, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, consider leaving a like, leave your thoughts and feedback down there in the comments, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.